right, welcome to the Swedish Jr Hockey Podcast. Today we have a fresh guest, the new head coach for Elmira Aviators in the North American Hockey League. Cody Murphy, thank you for jumping on and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jacob.
This episode is brought to you by Scandlux, your home for Scandinavian luxury products for the U.S. market. You can find us at scandlux.com.
So when I went to your Elite Prospects profile, of course, what pops out is the green colors of Bjorkloven in Umeå in Sweden. So we have a little bit of a fun Swedish connection. I want to talk about your time there. And of course, we want to talk about, since you've also been coaching in the juniors here and talk about the differences between Sweden, U.S., and kind of now looking at what's it like building a team from scratch in the NAHL. So why don't we start? So you're originally from Illinois, eventually ended up in D1 in Miami of Ohio, right?
Yeah. We got a lot to go over here, huh? We definitely have a lot of connections here. Yeah, I grew up in Chicago, playing the AAA circuit out here, and from there had an opportunity to play in the USHL. So I played 3 seasons there.
Yep.
Through playing in that league, went on and played Division I at Miami of Ohio, and after that, through my agent, had an opportunity to consider going overseas. I kind of had a different path with all that, but we could definitely jump into that if you'd like.
Yeah, I guess why not? I guess so. You played a little bit in the East Coast. What made you? At what point did you? Because everybody's in D1, looking at all right, I want to play in the AHL or the NHL, but it's talk about how tough that is and how few that actually make that jump.
Yeah, it was. It was a decision that, I was very conflicted, right? Like you said, I mean, the goal at the end of the day was to make it to the highest levels. And that really, my focus was trying to make it to the NHL, and have that experience, through my agency and, with my advisor, I really trusted him. And, I had an international agency. So we had representatives from the United States, but also from Sweden and also Finland. And I remember, when the whole situation was happening and I got done playing at Miami of Ohio and I got out of the Washington Capitals development camp, I was looking at my opportunities. And while I was actually at the Washington Capitals development camp, I learned that my Swedish advisor actually was doing some work and speaking to some different teams in Allsvenskan.
Yep.
And landed a pretty substantial opportunity for me and told me what a great opportunity that would be and gave me background on the town and what that opportunity could lead to. And I felt that was the best opportunity. I did play a little bit in the ECHL after college, and I think somebody told me this when I was younger, but they said, really absorb every opportunity that the game can bring to you. And I felt as if, I could accomplish the same goal, but also take an amazing life experience. So decided to go that route, which was definitely stepping outside my comfort zone, living in a different country and all those different types of things. But, I understand how good hockey is out there, and I learned a ton, and it was a really exciting moment for myself.
So we just had Brock Monpettit on, who played in Omaha. And
I know Brock. Yeah.
So, and of course, Brock had the postage stamp moment. That was his last shot, last game of his career.
I know. Brock, I actually reached out to Brock because he had a similar road to me, and I had played against Brock in juniors and in college. So when I had this opportunity, I actually reached out to Brock, and Brock told me what a great opportunity it was. So, it's a small world again here.
Well, and it's kind of funny because you mentioned so he played in Leksand, which is my hometown, but he kind of, when we talked, he was saying like So he went straight from Omaha into the AHL, and he was married at the time, and we're like traveling on a bus, and it was not made for family.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that was the AHL, so the East Coast is not any better.
No, it's a tough life, right? But I mean, pro hockey is pro hockey. It's tough no matter where you go. I figured, looking at the whole situation, I felt it would have been an amazing life experience on top of also, pursuing my goals. So, I did reach out to Brock, and he had nothing but great things to say about it as well. And he's a first-class guy, and it was really cool to see how much success he had in his career.
A few other guys that you played with, just to mention. So Blake Coleman has done okay in the pros. He was there.
Yeah.
Here's another guy for the Swedes, Matt Cato.
Yeah, it was funny when you were speaking. I actually was just about to bring up his name. Matthew Cato is one of the best people I've ever met my entire life. He is such a quality person besides just a great hockey player. He was a pleasure to play with at Miami of Ohio. And it's really cool to see what he's doing. And I played in Allsvenskan, and Leksand actually was in Allsvenskan when we played against them, and they had such an amazing building, and I actually loved the town. And when we went out there, they actually put us in these different cabins or something like that.
Yeah,
you remember, but I love the jerseys.
It's called Leksand Strand. It's right there.
It was actually I actually loved it. We were in the cabins, and they have such a beautiful venue, and I love their jerseys. I really do. I actually remember playing against them, thinking they had one of the better looking jerseys that I saw over there. So Leksand would have been a dream too if I could ever been a part of that. But they got an awesome organization, so it's great to see Cato doing it.
Yeah, and I think he just signed a new deal with them. I think he signed a multi-year deal with them, and he's going to be, which is not too common for the American players. And the same thing for you.
Yeah.
You were over there for several years, and a lot of times players are coming over from college or East Coast. They're kind of posting out, so to speak, and they're coming over, and they get cut really quick.
Can happen for sure. Yeah.
But I gotta say though, I mean, talking about jerseys, growing up, when I was growing up, I'm 49 now, so I'm a little bit older, but Bjorkloven was in the SHL. Thomas Sandström was playing for Bjorkloven, I believe, and
I played with his son.
Yeah, and
Bjorkloven,
but the iconic, Bjorkloven means birch leaf, and the iconic green jerseys are unique in Sweden, and I think they're a classic organization, and it's just they've been so close to getting back up to the SHL.
Yeah.
And I think Sundstrom is back there, and I think that they're really trying to put together, and I think they will. Eventually they'll find a way back in there.
Yeah. But I've been keeping tabs on the club, and I was very thankful for my time with them, and the opportunity that they gave me will last forever with myself. So I'm very thankful for that. And I actually got a chance to go back there 2 or 3 years after I got done playing, and they gave me a tribute, and it was really special. It just, I couldn't agree with any more with you. I love their jerseys. I love the colors. So, I'm hoping that they can find their way back into the top league.
Yeah. Let's jump back a year too, because the first year they played for my birth city, Vasteras. My dad worked for ASEA, which is now ABB, headquarters in Vasteras. But what caught my eye, of course, very mixed team with a lot of non-Swedes on that team. But this is as a tip from Johan Eriksson, who said, "Oh, he played for Philander and Mittel." And for those who don't know, Martin Philander, he was the head coach in Oskarshamn, and is just now. They got relegated, and he signed a deal with a Swiss team, I believe, in Bern, I believe. Yeah. But Mittel, tell me about. So Philander was the head coach, but Mittel, who has since went to work for Mora, played under Jeremy Colleton, And then when Colton moved over to Chicago, brought Mattel with him. And then he moved from the Blackhawks organization, went back to Sweden and coached Färjestad. And I believe he was the head coach when they won the SHL last year.
Wow. Okay.
So one of these guys that are definitely, and then Johan Rosén, who's a Leksand guy, also, he was the assistant coach. So what a really interesting coaching group there. What was your, as a new guy coming into Sweden, what was it like as a player coming in? Of course, it was a lot of non-Swedes on that team, but what can you tell me about that year?
It was it was a transitional year, right? Your first year of junior can be challenging. Your first year of college hockey can be challenging. The first year of pro can be challenging, right? You're stepping into a new environment. You're stepping into a new level of play, and it comes with its own challenges. And you're trying to, figure out what your role is in the team. And it's a little bit, open eye experience, trying to understand, how this is going to look for you. It's a little scary, right? A little leap of faith, and you're moving on to something new, and change can be, a little uncomfortable, right? So, and especially when you're moving to a different country. So, they were great to me, and they treated me fair, and, they had multiple conversations with me just to make sure that, I was settling in, and, they're good people. So they were a pleasure to play for. And, I'm definitely not surprised to see the success that they both had moving on from Vasteras, and I really enjoyed playing for those two guys.
And Rosén, he's now the J18 national coach for Sweden and has been for a while. So not a bad connection to have when you're now the NAHL coach.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I understand how good the hockey is over there. So, I learned a lot, and a lot of what I do and the way that I see the game has definitely been influenced from my experience playing over there. So, very thankful for that.
Yeah. How much how much involvement did you have with, as a player over there, both with Vasteras and Bjorkloven? Did they have a lot of juniors, guys coming up from the J20 national teams to move up during practices and get some time when you were there?
Yes, they did. Yeah, they'd have full-time practice players, and then as the season would progress and maybe an opening here or there, those guys would see some gameplay.
Yeah. What was that like for you in terms of you're coming out of, you played USHL, you played collegiate, and, completely different system, and they have the ability to test the waters kind of, they're not thrown in there. It's methodic, it's building, what's your, you've seen both ways, and, what's your takeaway from that?
I think in the moment I didn't really think anything of it, because, I was just focused really on myself and the team, and you knew that they were junior players. They weren't necessarily going to be impacting the lineup too much. But I think now that I'm removed from it, and now I'm in staff and management, I look at the whole situation so much differently, and I see, what a great experience it was for those guys to be able to play at that level at that age. Yep. And be able to practice with those players that were such great hockey players, and how much better that made them, right? When you play with and against better talent, especially when you're a young guy, it just definitely, enhances your development. So what a great situation that, those guys were put into, and an awesome environment that the team was able to create by, looking to develop players in-house.
Yeah, I was going to see if there was a specific player in here when I'm looking at the roster based on birth year and stuff. But if there was any any guys that were like
Adam Warner was a pretty young guy actually, and he went on to play in the Colorado Avalanche. But he actually emerged as one of our starting goaltenders in Bjorkloven.
Okay.
And what's interesting is, sense, right? And you seem to understand more when you look back on life. I mean, to understand that I was playing against Elias Pettersson when he was on Timrå, and the player that plays for New Jersey, Jasper Bratt, when he was on NAHL, and these guys are wearing cages and they're skating circles around you and making these plays. That's just, out of this world. It's pretty cool to see them now on hockey's biggest stage and the success that they're having. And again, it just goes to show, a testament to Swedish hockey and the pro leagues and just how good those players are coming out of those leagues. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool to see that and experience that.
Yeah. So how did then you make a transition? So let me ask you, were you single at the time or married, or how were you there all by yourself? Like with
I was there by
with
myself.
his wife.
No, I was there by myself, was not married. And I was single. Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit of difference, what a place to be in a different country. And really, did you ever think about like, man, I want to stay here longer? Or at what point did you, because, I see that in your elite prospects, it ended after your last year in Sweden, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a tough situation for myself. I ran into a series of injuries that just, it was really, really frustrating. The goal was to go over there and to have success, play in Allsvenskan, help those teams get promoted, and also have, individual success where I could earn a spot into the SHL. And that's also another reason why I'm so proud of like a Matthew Cato. Matthew Cato went over there, which is very hard to do. As an import, especially, there's a lot of pressure placed on you to develop but execute and deliver, and to go over there and you don't know anybody and those types of things and execute. It takes a lot, and that's where a guy like a Cato, I give him a ton of credit. That was something that I was looking to do, and I felt like I was in that conversation, but I just unfortunately ran into some different injuries, and it just didn't really the pieces didn't fall into place like I would have liked them to. And the last one that I had actually was a concussion that put me out a good 3 months. I had it in like November, December, and I couldn't find a way to get back into the lineup, which was really hard, right? And especially when you make such a life-changing decision, you move across the country, across the world really, and you have goals on things you'd like to do. So that was really disappointing for me because I really wanted to get to that top level, and definitely wanted to be more of an asset for the teams because those teams believed in me. And I felt bad that I was letting them down, let my teammates down, but it was a situation that I just didn't have control over. And just, I wish it would have gone differently. But again, the success that I did have and did experience and living over there and playing pro and the friendships I made, I'll always be, look back and be proud of.
Yeah. But at the same time, you do have so you have a college degree.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You've done this thing in a different country, but then, no, I want to get back into hockey. Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Why not try the professional, the non-hockey side? Was the love of the game too strong, or what?
When I got done playing, I got home. And I actually had some ECHL teams reach out to me to get going again. But, after that injury, it just really got me thinking, what are the next steps? Does this make sense? Things do take time. I'm at an age now where I can start to grow, however else that looks, right? Yep. Which was a really, really hard thing to do, was to step away from the game as a player. And I understand the struggles that other players have when they do decide to hang them up. It's probably one of the hardest things you ever are going to do, because to be able to compete and have that experience as a player is something like nothing else, right? And especially when you start at a super young age and your focus is always on next season and those types of things, and all of a sudden that day comes to an end, it can just be a very hard reality. So when I got back from Sweden and I'm trying to figure out the direction of my life, I really contemplated going different routes. And, that definitely was a challenging time for myself to find that focus. But, I just love the game. I love the game too much, and it's just the friendships that you make through it, the experiences you have through it. It's something that I plan on, being a part of my life for the rest of my life until, I'm an old man. I'll always find a way to be a part of the game in one way or another. And, super thankful for all the opportunities I had. So and again, that kind of made me realize that when I was done playing, I looked into different things and looked at different options. And, I think what's really important is making sure that you're happy. And, I realized how much the game means to me, and I wanted to, make sure it played a role in my life. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be the main role or not, and I was really navigating that. But the more I dove into it, and the more that things developed, I feel the same way now as a coach as I did as a player. I have a new focus, and that's on hockey here.
Yeah. So you got into coaching then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of different places in the USPHL, but so a little bit of full circle, I guess, because you were in Elmira
Yes.
with USPHL, and then to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and we talked offline that you were there with Ryan, and then Northbrooks. Is that a private school, or what is Northbrooks?
Northbrook Bluehawks. It's a local youth hockey club in the Chicagoland area. So
Okay.
I was the hockey director for the past 2 seasons and overseeing travel teams and in the area.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good. I mean, and then now you're the newest head coach in the newest NAHL team. That's a big jump.
Yeah, it is, but
not necessarily from where you were as a player, but normally the guys are getting that kind of a job have either been an assistant coach in other NAHL teams, or they've been a head coach at an NCDC team, or maybe they've been in the Canadian juniors, or and you're very young to get a NAHL job.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think what made myself a good fit for it, it was the relationship that I had with our president of operations, our general manager, Ray Welsh. I worked with him for 2 seasons in junior hockey. So, that background that I do have is, I do have experience coaching junior hockey. And I also think in this situation is I also have experience in starting first year organizations from nothing with Ray, with our support staff. And, it just made a lot of sense for him in his eyes. And like you said, it takes, a long road to get an opportunity like this. And, I definitely understand that and understand what a privilege and an honor it is for someone to place their faith and trust in me that I can do this job. And, I'm thankful for that and definitely ready to step into that role.
Which organization did you work with him before?
So the 2 junior teams in the USPHL, I worked for Ray.
Okay.
And those were, junior teams that were first year organizations, very similar to the situation I now find myself in with Ray. We were a first year club and we had to bring in guys. And once you bring them in and you recruit them, it's about, bringing them together and forming an identity and taking care of each other. And that probably those 2 experiences there in the USPHL, working with Ray and starting first year organizations from scratch, were probably some of the most special experiences I've ever had in the game. To see where we started to where we finished, and the friendships that were made and the progress that we made, not only as a team but also as individuals, to see where these guys have gone on to play. We had 5 different players on our first year USPHL team that went on to play Division I college hockey, and to see where they all started as individuals and where now they are today, I think that's one of the most rewarding sides as being a coach is see the progression that the players make. And the fact that, that you can be a part of that in a positive light, I think is also something that, really draws me to being a coach and being in the industry.
So let's talk about the Elmira Aviators now. So exciting. I mean, newest team. So there are the Mallards out in, was it Twin City Mallards in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
Watertown Shamrocks, I believe, up in Watertown, as far up north as you can go before you go into Canada, I believe.
Yeah.
Who else is new?
Yeah, and us. There's 3 teams.
There's 3 teams. I thought it was 4. So you guys are the last one. A little bit, I'm sure you wish you would have already had 6 months. And how does it work now? Curious question, because I don't know this.
Yeah.
Are you considered an expansion team, or do you just get the same number of tenders, or how do you now fill a roster?
Yeah, we we're handed a decent amount of tenders and draft picks for the upcoming draft, June 12th. Okay. And more tenders here to, be able to give more opportunities to, since we don't have a returning roster. And I think that's also what makes this whole experience so special and unique for the players side of this, is that the opportunities there, at different organizations, the guys have returning players, and there may only be 2 or 3 spots, right? Or that, maybe 30, whatever. Definitely a number of players are competing for a small amount of spots. With us, we're wide open, which is really exciting. We have our guys, and we're in talks with some very high profile players with great backgrounds that are really excited to break into the league. And, again, I've been here before 2 different times where we've recruited and started from scratch. And this is where the really, really exciting part is. So working very closely with Ray Welsh, who's our president of operations and our general manager, and our director of scouting, Nick Perry. And, every single day we're aggressive and calling different advisors and players and former coaches, and, and really shaking every tree that we can to bring out the best players possible. But I just think opportunity, right? Reflecting back on, as we talked about with my time as a player, I think as a player, one thing that you want more than anything is opportunity.
Yep.
Right? That's really the biggest thing that you can ask for, that you have an opportunity to earn it. Right. And I think with our roster, these players have an opportunity to earn a rostered spot in one of the best leagues in the world. So, it's a great opportunity all around for everybody involved, and super thankful to be part of that.
So for the Swedish listener, or really for the European listener, let's call it that, because we do get a pretty good following, whether directly on Spotify or on YouTube or wherever people get this. It's kind of crazy. This podcast was started 2 years ago, just kind of, and the motive was to educate and inform, and originally was really for the U.S. listeners about Swedish junior hockey, but it works both ways. And what's been fun is that I get calls now, and they say, hey, tell me about, help me out with this, and I'm not an advisor. I'm just a guy that talks about Swedish juniors, but it's really about juniors from a Swedish angle, I guess it would be. But for the Swedish listener, explain where, they're not going to know where Elmira is, but they may know of New York, and they think of New York, they think of New York City. So how far are you from New York City, and where is Elmira in geographically, so they can kind of have a understanding of what Elmira is all about?
Yeah, it's 2 hours away from New York City. I actually did get a chance when I was there previously, and actually with my previous team, we did play out of First Arena, which does make this feel that much more natural, as I do have that experience living in that town, and then also playing out of that rink that we're going to be out of every single day. And that rink is really, really special. I mean, played in a lot of awesome venues, and this is definitely up there with the best any league player.
Yeah, why is it? What makes this? Describe the advantage now that you have being a new team with nice facilities.
It in my opinion, players want to have that true junior hockey experience, right? It's something that maybe I didn't quite realize as I went through it when I played in the USHL, and maybe I hope I didn't take it for granted, but definitely on the other side of things, I can realize now how fortunate I was that when I did play in the USHL, we played in arenas, right? We played in arenas with staff, with fans, and and they had the whole production like you would experience in an NHL game, right? They had the kiss cam and the chuck a puck and that whole experience, I think, is ultimately what makes this junior hockey ordeal very special. Right. And that's what we're going to offer. We're at a 3,500 seater arena with a Jumbotron and a light show. And this venue has a ton of experience with different professional hockey league teams that have played it in the past. And we're going to be the only tenant there. So this is going to be our home base. It's a 2-sheet arena. In regards to players really having that true junior hockey experience, they're really going to get this venue that we're playing out of is as nice as any building in the USHL and or North American League. And I think when the North American League decided to grant them acceptance into the league, obviously they took a look at this arena and went, you know what, this is showtime. And also geographically, we're in the East and we're not very far from all of our opponents. So it just made a ton of sense. And I remember 4 years ago when I was working with Ray and we were playing out of this arena, I just remember telling Ray, like, what an incredible venue this is. This is almost an advantage right here in itself to say that you can play here. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous.
I want people. So while you're listening, I want people to go on their phone or on their computer, go and type in, I'm looking at this, my side screen here, firstarena.net, and then hit the about section. And I'm going to sound like I'm promoting, but hey, we're promoting a little bit here, but this looks pretty dang cool. Purple seats throughout.
Yeah. It's
special.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a this is like it's almost like an old school barn, but modern. Is that a okay description?
I don't know if anything old school can be thrown in there, but
but you know what I'm saying? It's close. It looks like all the seats and the spectators are really close to the rink.
Yeah.
And it's it's not a big.
When you say old school, you know what I think about actually?
No.
Is Tingsreed's Arena. That's what I think of old school.
You were thinking about a cold place, probably.
Tingsreed was old school right there, man.
No, so you'd been to some places and the atmosphere is just, it's too big. Like some of these AHL arenas, I remember Charlotte Checkers played in downtown where the NBA team or the Cleveland Monsters plays, and it's like you just get swallowed up in just too much volume. And here it's kind of intimate, packed.
It's special. It's a really special arena. And I remember 4 years ago when we would practice there, I'd jump on the ice and I'd look around as we're skating around. And I go, man, we are so fortunate to be here. It's definitely really, really special. And I think, there's different junior leagues, and I'm not here to diminish any other leagues and have nothing but respect for all the other leagues. But I think, they don't really have that experience. And some of these other teams, they play out of rinks that also share youth hockey teams, which is totally, acceptable and understandable and those types of things. But I think, at least for myself, when I was going through the process, when you're playing junior hockey, you want those feels. You want to be able to really take in that really unique time period from 17 to 20 that you're able to play in those types of venues, able to have those experiences, and really be able to, soak that in. And I think that's something that's going to make this organization extremely successful moving forward. And we're getting the support of the city, and we're getting the support of, and eventually we're going to get their support of all the fans too. I mean, they've had many, many different teams, go through there, and I think the city loves hockey, and they're going to see a great product, and it's definitely the beginning of something really special that I'm honored to be a part of.
Yeah. What's it like now? So you mentioned the draft. Are you guys doing a pre-draft or a prospect camp or ID camp, or how do you guys coming out of the chute a little bit late here? So how do you put together and gather? You don't have a huge established staff, and you're going to have limited resources to be able to look at but there's so many players out there. There are people that see, what you're mentioning, opportunity, new team. I may be playing in the NCDC. I may be playing, let's say, in the OJHL, or I may be playing in the GOJ or the CCHL or the MJHL or the SJHL. And this is now an opportunity. Or it may be, I didn't get, it may be a little bit difficult if you have someone that it isn't necessarily getting the playing time for another NAHL team because they may still be rostered. But how do you now build a team, and what's in front of you now? Or is that Ray's job, and you're just going to take it from there?
No. So, it's collaborative effort. And this is, again, this is where, Ray and I's past, it feels very natural. I've been here before with him now 2 times where started the team from scratch, and it'd be an injustice to say it was just us. There's multiple people. Don Minacchio, who's, part of our staff, Nick Perry, director, scouting, and he has a tremendous background of being a general manager. And involved with different clubs in NAHL and NCDC. And he brings a ton of, knowledge of different players that have been, and he's been doing this for, 7 to 10 years. Ray's been doing this for, 10 to 12 years, most recently with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights and the NCDC, coming from very accredited organizations. So definitely wouldn't be fair to just say it's myself. And it's a collective effort. It's a collaborative effort. We're talking to each other multiple times a day. I'm striking up leads. They're striking up leads. And that's where the really fun part happens, is the opportunity that's involved in this, not only for ourselves, but for the players. And like you already said, right, like with, coming out and having an opportunity to break into a great league, there's a lot of opportunity here, and we're very confident in the players that we're already speaking with, and the players that we've already tendered, and the players that we're going to be drafting here June 12th. And, it's a great energy. It's a great buzz. We're excited to prove ourselves. We're excited to, jump into this league and be competitive right away.
So when's main camp for you guys?
Main camp is August 1st. Actually August 2nd to the 7th, which will be at First Arena in Elmira, New York. And yes, we do have some pre-draft camps coming up. We have one of which that's going to be in Chicago, June 7th to the 9th. And then the following weekend, we're going to be in Tempe, Arizona. So okay. It's kind of cool to go out there. And, we have our staff meetings in Las Vegas this year at the NHL draft in Las Vegas, which should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to, having that experience and meeting the different staff members and being a part of that. So, from there, we have main camp, which is going to take place early August.
Yeah. And if we look at last year, so we had Colorado, New Hampshire, and Rochester. And out of those three, some take a little bit longer. And the first year, it depends a little bit on how hard they want to, bust in. But it's a challenge. Colorado struggled. But if you look at Rochester and New Hampshire, we're competitive pretty quick. Mm-hmm. I mean, didn't make playoffs, but, played very respectably throughout so what's the goals? I mean, as a new organization, and since you've been there before, mm-hmm. how do you set goals as a new team?
I would say, it starts with recruiting. It really starts hitting the pavement with that every single day. And that's my main focus every single day is seeking the players out, So I think bringing in the best players possible, but then also, like I said earlier, once you recruit them, you bring them in, that's your responsibility to form a unit, form a team, and form an identity. The players are going to play hard for each other because they're going to respect each other, right? And I'm going to create an environment of respect. And, and I think in my experiences, when we did have that environment, it led to a lot of success. The players don't necessarily care what you have to say unless they know that you care.
Yeah.
Right. And that's definitely a message that, I keep in mind, an overall theme that I look to prove every single day. And it's definitely worth mentioning my coach at Miami of Ohio, Rico Blase, what him and his staff were able to create for us in my 4 years there. He really had us understand that we were playing for something bigger than just ourselves. And if you can create that type of environment, that it's not just about me getting my points and me getting my Division I commitment and then moving on, but also, hey, like, we're going to take care of each other, right? And this is going to go beyond just the years that we're here, right? We're going to create friendships that are going to last lifetimes. You mentioned Blake Coleman earlier in this call. Blake Coleman was my best man at my wedding. I got married last August. And when Blake Coleman won his Stanley Cup with the Tampa Bay Lightning, he had the presence of mind to FaceTime me in the locker room. These guys are shooting champagne, and he's sitting next to Steven Stamkos. And he can barely hold his phone in his hand because there's so much, commotion going on. And he had the presence of mind to FaceTime me in a moment like that, where he's at the pinnacle of the game. He's an absolute all-star. He doesn't have to remember. I mean, he doesn't, the fact that I was even a thought that crossed his mind, I think speaks to, the bonds and the friendships that hockey can create, under the right, fostered in the right environment. And that's a big thing that I'm going to make sure that we do, because the 2 years that we did have that, I think the players played really hard for each other and didn't want the season to end. Yeah. Didn't want the, and I think, that's something that's really special, and I'm really excited to get back into that. And again, with my experience playing as a player, like I understand how impactful that can be. So
yeah, I think that being, I mean, I mentioned you're young, you're not 25, right?
yeah,
But I think that you have advantages of being a new team. There's opportunities in that. You have advantages by being a young coach because you're not that far removed from where they were, and you're not necessarily coming from a different kind of a culture, and the background that you have of playing at the level that you played, both juniors, collegiate, and pro in a different country, kind of gives you a background that sets you up for success in terms of the baseline for that. Wrapping up, we always ask this question, and that is two things. One is you met yourself at 17. What advice would you give yourself? Some things that you know now that you didn't know back then, that perhaps you would like to share with the audience.
First thing, I'll take that question, but there's one thing I actually really want to say before I jump into that I definitely think is worth, the audience to be able to listen to, is now that I'm thinking about it, I know we were talking about junior players that were on those pro rosters, right?
Yeah.
I do remember, as I'm sitting here and I'm speaking to you, I do remember some of those conversations I would have with the junior players is they would ask me, they'd come up to me and they'd say, "Oh, you played college hockey in the United States, right? You came in the NCAA." And these guys were like, 19, 18, right? They're junior players, right? I was like, "Yeah, no, I did." And they'd say to me, "What was that like?" And they were so intrigued about the situation. And they were like, "Oh, I've heard that it's incredible. And, is it like the movies? Is it like the movies?" Like, in all that stuff, right? And, now looking back on it, I think it just made me really realize that, the Swedish players as a whole, not as a whole, but I think you would know better than me here, but I think I get the impression at times they just don't know enough about what the United States has to offer with junior hockey that does ultimately lead to the NCAA. And again, I know I'm biased because I experienced it myself, but those were some of the best days of my entire career was the experience I had at Miami of Ohio. I wouldn't change it for anything. And I, again, just going back to that conversation with the junior player, like he never knew about it. He never knew about it. And I think maybe had he known about it, at least he could have considered the option, and I know how competitive it is in Sweden. And I know all the teams are vying to get to the highest levels. And I'm sure a lot of these general managers, they don't really want to let some of these kids know about opportunities over there because they don't really want to lose those guys that are really impactful guys that could help their club move on to the top levels. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a conflict right there in itself where the player doesn't necessarily know, the player is not necessarily knowledgeable in what else is out there. I think probably through player advising, agents, those things, maybe they are becoming more knowledgeable in what's out there and what that can lead to. I know Carl Hagelin was a big guy that came over, played at Michigan, went on to have an incredible NHL career, and there's probably numerous other players. But I do just remember speaking to a couple of those junior guys, and you could see it in their eyes. They were like, "Oh man, I kind of wish I knew more about that." Because by the time they play pro, they lose their NCAA eligibility. So
yeah, and I think let me jump in on this too, because I think that this is really why we're doing this podcast, right? Is to educate and inform. And I think that there should be a lot more Swedish players playing juniors over here. Yeah, you got to be careful. There's some places that will promise the world, but I think when you're looking at the North American Hockey League, even NCDC, it's tough. Canadian juniors, it's locked unless you go into BCHL, but there's some rumors about that stuff changing. But there's so much opportunity. And I think that is, you use the word opportunity. For a Swedish player that finished, I think that they should finish their high school, which is gymnasium over there, which means you have 2 more years of eligibility over here. So instead of playing, and I'm just, this is going to be controversial and some people are not going to like it, but they're 19. They're finishing up gymnasium. They could play another year of juniors in Sweden, but now you have 2 more years of juniors, or even if you just have 1 year of juniors, you're finished up at J20. You have one more year of eligibility in the U.S. to play, or Canada. And because the choice that you have here, you're not going to, if you're looking at a career in life and experiences in life, the majority of the players are not going to play in Allsvenskan or in SHL. They're going to be meeting Cody Murphys, who's already played 4 years of college, and their first year are going to try to beat out the Cody Murphys of the world, or the Brockman Pettit that comes in. And they're going to be in a very low role, lesser role, or they're going to play in Hockeyettan, the third, which is good hockey.
Yeah.
But you're not going to, and here's the biggie. There is no way you're going to go to college and play. So the likelihood that you're now going to go and you're going to play 4, 5, 6 years, and you may work a part-time job, the likelihood that you're going to go back and go to college is very, very low. Versus you're 19, you got 2 more years, go over to North America, play juniors, and you've got a legitimate shot in getting a deal at a D3 or D1 college. And then continue to play at an extremely fun and great level, and get a college degree that no one can ever take away from you. Ever. And where that sets you up, you could still go back and then play, and you haven't lost anything. You've probably gained more experience by playing with more of the same level age as what you are, versus now playing against the Cody Murphys or the pros that may be 28, 29, 30 years old, and you're now in a fourth line role or trying to bust in, and you're a healthy scratch. I just think to me, it's a no-brainer. What holds a lot of people back is A, they don't know, or B, fear.
It's hard. No, I totally get it. I remember, when you reached out to me and I saw this podcast and things like that, I think it's definitely something that I've thought about at times, where I'm like, these hockey players are so incredible, right? And the hockey over there is so incredible. And I love the culture around the hockey out there. I love that every town has their team and they're rooting for it, and just the town support. I mean, what Swedish Pro has is very, very special.
And that'll still be there when they come back.
And it'll still be there when they come back. And I just think again, when going back to that conversation when I had the junior player, I just think that the way he was looking at me, the way he was talking to me, you could really see he was genuinely excited and interested in what I had to say, and you could tell, maybe had he known, maybe he could have made a different decision, but by then it was already pretty, set in stone. And again, I wouldn't say he regretted staying there, because that's not fair to say that, but I think just the knowledge behind it, I think that's where,
Well, let's go there. Since you opened that door, I'm going to climb through it. You're a Swedish guy now. You just finished gymnasium. Season's over. Is there time for me to reach out? A lot of these guys, they don't know how to reach out, and they may be sending some emails, and they may not, should they go to a main camp if they're invited?
I think they should. I think they should. I think
how many import spots do you have? You got 4?
You have 6. You have 6 import spots in the North American League. Now, in the NCDC, as far as I know, unless they made some sort of recent rule change, there's unlimited spots.
Yep.
And I think it's really it's about opportunity.
And what happens? What happens if they come to main camp? They may get an invite to training camp. There's always the drop down for NAHL is probably going to be, if you get cut in the in the NAHL, you're probably going to have a NCDC team to go to, right?
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, you don't have to go down. That's not the end of. I mean, to me, there's just opportunity, and I think what I would encourage people to do is reach out. Be real, and there's a lot of players that, they also have to be aware that NAHL is tough, right?
Very tough.
If you're an 08 and you want to come in and play in the NAHL, just do a reverse engineering out of elite prospects, and you see how many 16-year-olds are playing in the NAHL. It doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, I mean,
there
are younger guys. I think the league is definitely getting younger than what it once was. 10 years ago, 12 years ago. But again, it's so age specific. It's such player specific.
Yeah.
And that's where it's so hard generalizing. Like obviously, you can find trends and patterns in player movement and what's worked, what hasn't worked. But the thing about hockey that makes the sport so unique is that there's so many different ways to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
There's your path, and what your path is your path, and again, I think you can try to find the best path for you based off of other experiences and those types of things. But, being able to take that leap of faith, and go for it, I think is a lot. And I think it goes beyond the game. I think it teaches you life lessons that are going to apply once you're done playing the sport, that there are zero guarantees in life, period, no matter what you do. You have to go for things. And that's something that I did as a player, right? Like going over to Sweden, that was a huge leap of faith. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know any people on the team. I mean, at one point when I was playing at Bjorkloven, I was the only import on the team. So they're going to the locker room, they're talking strategy, they're speaking Swedish for an hour, and I'm sitting there not understanding a single thing that's going on, right? Talk about being uncomfortable, stepping outside your comfort zone, right? But I think that also really, it was very, very good for me to be uncomfortable and learn how to settle into that. And it was a great life experience for me. So back to your question on the 17-year-old, what would my advice be to myself, or just
no, to yourself? I mean, things and they may be it's not necessarily things you would do differently, but just like things you've learned since then that you wish that you would have known back then.
Oh man.
I mean, we're talking about pre-juniors here, but 17 is like this pivotal age of
Yeah. I'd say the only thing, definitely very proud of myself in the way I did approach everything. And I honestly don't have any regrets with how I went into the whole process and what I did. So I definitely don't look back and ever have any regrets, but I would say, if I had a little advice, I would just tell myself to try to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Try to really settle into the moment a little bit more, instead of always looking to the future of being stressed out and, I don't have this and I got to get this. And if I don't do that, I don't get this point total, then this will happen. This will happen. If I don't, at times, and again, it's so natural, right? Because you're always pushing yourself and you have standards for yourself. And I think that's also what makes, a competitive athlete very great, is they hold themselves harder, to higher standard than anyone else can hold them to. Right. But I think at times, that pressure that you put on yourself, and, I wish sometimes I kind of, maybe my advice would be to just, instead of, looking too far ahead, just take a moment and really, enjoy what you have.
Yeah.
Enjoy, be thankful for where you are and really take it in, because I think, one day it'll be over and you'll be looking back on it, and, and to enjoy every moment that you have. Hockey, is what a privilege it is to still be a part of the game, and I don't take that for granted. And I think as a player, enjoy it while you have it,
Yeah. No, it's great advice. And you're not the first one. I've recorded over 100 episodes of this podcast, and it's a common one. And the thing about it is, sometimes we don't know these things until we have lived it.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that are listening, I mean, that's the advice that I have to those who are listening is, we become experts after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And the really smart people are the ones who are learning from other people's, expertise, or they have been there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a common one. Don't be so quick. I went through college way too quick, and I didn't savor the moment as much as I probably should have, could have. And that's a good one. Last thing, we have a partnership with Target Aid. TargetAid.com is a Swedish fundraising platform that we are a part of. And it's kind of an interesting one with non-Swedish people, but they have a segment called Team of My Heart, Klubben i mitt hjärta, If you were to say, this is the team of my heart right now, which one would you say?
For Swedish club?
No, I'm just talking for you, for Cody Murphy.
Oh, favorite club, like just besides Elmira Aviators, of course. Are you talking about like NHL or what are you talking about?
No, that's good. I'm gonna snatch the first choice. I'm gonna be like Dave Portnoy, who says, "No, you can't change the score." So Elmira Aviators is the team of your heart.
That is the team of my heart. Absolutely, it is.
It's going to be so interesting, and I say this every time when I have a guest on. It's going to be fun to kind of follow you, but with a new team, and maybe we'll check in throughout the season and see how it goes. But being a new team, what an opportunity! What a blast! I'm sure you're not going to have much family time, and you're going to have a lot of hard work in front of you. But if you're a hockey geek, you're in high cotton, like we say in North Carolina.
When the opportunity presented itself, and I'm not from Elmira, New York. I'm from Chicago. I'm moving out there too. I'm making sacrifices as a player would, and I think when I was presented with this opportunity, reflecting upon it, I really thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? If I don't go for this, I'm going to regret it. I'm going to look back and I'm going to regret it, and I'm not going to live that way, And I'm proud of that. So,
well,
really looking forward to it. I'm very honored to be here, and really every day I wake up, I'm just really, really excited. I'm juiced up, ready to go, and so fortunate, so happy, and every day it's been so fun, and it's obviously going to have a ton of challenges, like you said. I totally acknowledge that, but when you believe in it, it makes it that much easier. So,
well, good luck the rest of the season.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jacob. Appreciate it.
Thanks.